The pillows are fluff thanks to Miss Emily. The couch is wide enough, join the family. It's all love while we laugh at first criminalities. Hey, 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 welcome to the Sofa Squad. Sipping from the cup at hey, hey, hey. Come laugh with the Sofa Squad. Can't roll my damn eyes hard enough. Oh, please, the puppies need me. Ooh, oh, please, my body is rejecting none of that fancy credential stuff. I'm just here for the cringe binge. Hey, 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 welcome to the Sofa Squad. Sipping from the cup and hey, hey, hey. Come laugh with the Sofa Squad. Can't roll my damn eyes hard enough. Oh please, the puppies need me. Oh please, my body is rejecting none of that fancy credentialed stuff. I'm just here for the cringe binge. Hey, 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 welcome to the Sofa Squad. Sipping from the cup that hey, hey, hey. Come laugh with the Sofa Squad. Can't roll my damn eyes hard enough.
Hey, 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 welcome to the Sofa Squad. Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. EM says, I tried to explain your painting to my husband, and all the lore was so hard to explain. EM, are you talking about the painting of the walls or the painting here or here? Which one are you talking about? And hello, everybody. Thanks for the ones, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Hello, Tux. Hello, Mods. I hope y'all are doing well. Y'all make room. We got the employee of the month here. Whoop-a-doo-doop-doop. I love your name. I hope y'all are doing wonderful. I hope you had a wonderful day. Long time no say. So y'all, this is what we're gonna be doing. We're doing day 4, I think it is, of the Sarah Hartsfield trial. Now, on the painting I did for you, I emailed you a picture of it. It's ready to say, oh, sweet EM. Okay, side note, I'm going to try. So I'm on day 3 of trying to get a new P.O. box. It's not in my favor right now. It is not working right now. So just bear with me. I'm going to try again tomorrow. Every day I try and I can dedicate like an hour to it before my attention's like, where are we going? And it's like, there's something in the universe doesn't want it to happen right now. I've gone through 3 different services. None of them work out. And it's something pops up. First day it was that I had to come back to the house. The dude that was doing the thing called and I was like, let me leave. Then the next day I got there and they're like, oh, we need every form of ID you ever had. Don't have that on me. Then yesterday I did 2 online ones. Whatever. So I'm going to get back to it tomorrow. So I apologize because I'm very honored that you would do a painting and other people sending stuff, and I'm very appreciative of it. So hopefully I will get it soon, and I'll get you the new address as soon as I do. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over day 4. Now, the dude's going to do his video at 7:15. So we're going to start reading the thing. You know, the little updates that we do, and whenever he comes on, because you know how he's like kind of late a little bit every night, which is fine. So we're just going to read until he comes on, and then we're going to switch over to him, and we'll either get through it or we'll see him first. You know what I'm saying? So we'll go back to it. They showed the an interview that they did like at the hospital with her. I don't know how. I cannot wait to see it, y'all. You know it's good, meaning good in the way of, oh, she's laying it on thick. You know what I'm saying? So hold on one second. Sorry. Had to get everything, you know, hydraulic lubricated back up again so I can talk. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start reading. And once we hear him come on, I'm going to check the other screen for his little daily update. We'll switch over to him. Okay, so 9:08 a.m. This morning, Deputy Brand Yeatman called as the 8th witness of the trial. Deputy Yeatman with the Chambers County Sheriff's Office was called to testify. Yeatman told jurors that medical staff had concerns about Joseph Hartsfield and concern about foul play. Okay, this is major for a cop to be up there and like medical professionals and him and all this. Like, this is because I mean, this is very on the fence as to what kind of evidence they can cough up to really, nail her. Okay. At the hospital, Yeatman spoke directly with Sarah. He said that Sarah told him that Joseph was tired from work and that she just had surgery. According to Yeatman, Sarah said Joseph was in bedroom laying down sleeping, and that she called the ambulance around 2:02 p.m. the same day. Sarah also gave him a brief timeline of the day before, saying Joseph, quote, came home from night shift work, came home around 3 to 4 a.m. and had been in bed since he got home. Sarah told the deputy that Joseph got up multiple times before she called for help, quote, to get a drink and use the bathroom. She said she made him a broccoli, cheese, cheddar, rice casserole dish around 4:30 to 5, but that Joseph only ate a bowl of it. She added that Joseph asked for 2 insulin needles. A likely story. Yeatman testified that Sarah told him she was watching Dexcom and Joseph was snoring loudly, that alerts were going off and that she was seeing them. She also said she was out of it because of prescribed medicine from recent surgery and that she was staying on the couch in the living room in and out of sleep. Sarah admitted she felt guilty because she was falling asleep. So pause for a second there. So this is huge to me because I thought she was going to try and play it off like, oh, I never even heard that. Hey, Emily. But now she's saying, oh, I heard them going off. I was watching Dexcom. So this is a whole other game changer to me. This is the kind of information I'm looking for. So I'm like, here's my thing. Because again, to me, it's like the evidence is shaky in this one. If you are aware that this thing is going off and you're seeing it do it multiple times, right? So you're like, and what Northwest said, then call 911 for him. So I thought she was going to play it off like, I don't know. I fell asleep and I woke up and he was in this state. So I called 911 then. That would seem the more obvious thing to say if you're trying to get away with it, right? Okay, let's keep going. Okay. Yeatman describes Sarah and Joseph's home as having a lot of moving boxes still in rooms. The house was in disarray. Inside the main bedroom, he said he noticed sheets were flipped over in a pile of vomit and clothes on the floor. At the hospital, Yeatman said that Joseph's family seemed distraught, concerned, and wanted investigation. While Sarah appeared pretty content at the time, kind of there, calmer than the rest of the family. He said Sarah sobbed a little bit when talking to the deputy. Their behavior always gives them away. On cross-exam, the defense attorney focused on Yeatman's body camera statement from Sarah at the hospital. Darwin presented a disc labeled Defense Exhibit 8 disc with Sarah hospital body camera recording. The state objected, arguing it was not properly authenticated and contains hearsay. The judge ruled it was not hearsay. Okay. Then let's go up here. 9:30. Break so the judge can hear and rule on the body camera footage from Deputy Yeatman. The judge admitted the footage of Sarah's interview at the hospital with Deputy Yeatman. In the recording, Sarah appeared, quote, in pain when reaching for her driver's license. The audio was difficult to hear. Sarah told deputies that Joseph was tired after working a night shift and coming home for a job interview. She said Joseph told her he needed insulin, so she got the pens out of the fridge for him, and that she watched the Dexcom. Sarah became emotional, saying she never leaves the house when he's sleeping because his blood sugar is so erratic. She said she was asleep on the couch, kept hearing the alert go off, and thought Joseph was getting up to drink juice, so she kept refilling his glass. I thought he was okay, she said. Sarah told deputies that around 1 p.m. Joseph was sweating and his blood sugar was reading 40. When she returned to the room, there was throw up all over Joseph. She said she tried to wake him, but he wouldn't, so she called 911 at 2:02. Pause right there. Okay, I'm sorry, but this kind of testimony right here, I'm like, yeah. So notice just even the time discrepancy. At 1 o'clock, she sees him in this state, and she calls 911 an hour later. Done. Done. Okay. I don't know what kind of laws there are. I mean, obviously, we'll learn in this case right here. At minimum, pretend that you're taking murder off the table, whatever. She is admitting, I saw him in a state where a medical intervention was needed. I waited an hour to call. Let's not even get into her talking about, I heard the alarm going off over and over, and I don't get this part. Y'all help me out here. I thought he was getting up to drink juice, so I kept refilling his glass. So that part, I would have needed to hear all this because I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Well, then where was the juice going if he wasn't drinking it? Like, where was the glass? Was it out in the kitchen and you thought he was getting up? This was like, I'm very confused about this part because hearing all this now, I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling more confident. Like for a jury to hear that, it's like, what? And again, at minimum, you waited an hour, especially if somebody on the jury has experience like dealing with diabetes and things of this nature, and like they say they've seen someone in a medical event, and they know like, yeah, you can't wait an hour. Like you saw him covered in barf and you didn't put two and two together that his thing had been going off this whole time. Okay, let's keep going. Sorry, I could keep going. Okay. In the interview, Sarah cried, saying, I've done all I can to monitor him. Wait, hold on. Oh, let me read it over. I've done all I can to monitor him. I don't know how it got this bad, end quote. At other times, she asked the deputy, is there a role you play in this? Is it just to document what happened? The deputy said Sarah became hysterical when told it's not looking good for Joseph. She was acting. Deputy Yeatman testified that he saw, quote, 2 pens and more in the fridge. Sarah told him she had only touched 2 insulin pens, which he said made taking fingerprints unnecessary. He said that Sarah admitted she, quote, felt guilty she didn't do more, end quote, explaining her surgery, medication, and that she slept on the couch because Joseph was snoring in bed. Yeatman said he tagged his report as criminally negligent homicide. Okay, thank you. Under the direction of his supervision, he added he did not know who, how, when, how much, what kind of insulin was administered to Joseph, and did not know how anybody intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Joseph. Okay, so let's pause there. So at minimum, criminally negligent homicide. Now, remind me again, is that, pardon me, is that one of the charges on the table? I'll look it up in a second. But if anybody knows off the top of their head, because that's my thing. Like I'm thinking at minimum, if they charged it right, if they're like, yeah, we can't get a first degree or this or that, whatever, then it's like, again, just listening to this, I'm like, oh yeah, this is negligent. I mean, that's the term I'm looking for when I'm like, what kind of charge do you get when you're not a caregiver? You're not this, but like you go in and you find a person in general, but especially your partner, your husband, your wife, whoever, and they're in a medical emergency and you wait an hour. You know, she said, I thought I could have done more. I heard the thing kept going off. You know, he's nervous about his stuff, right? How out of it were you? And so in a normal person, this is my thing. And again, I don't know the layout of the house. A normal person in that situation hears it going off. You'd be like this. I'm making this up right now. She would have been like, Joe, are you okay? What's going on? I can't get off the sofa. Pick up your phone. I'm calling you. At minimum, if you're that in how do you say it? Like can't get off the sofa yourself. Yeah. Kristen brings up the absolutely Kristen's out of it, but fine at the hospital. Oh, here we go. Hold on. Oh, it's that music. Hold on. Let me just get to a stopping point over here so I know where we're going to pick back up, which will be right here. Okay, so basically right before lunch. Okay, then I'm going to come over here. Yep, fine out of it, but fine at the hospital. Yeah. But again, oh, excuse me. I said, hey now, hey now. Sandy says, and hey Sandy, how are you tonight? When my husband goes off, wakes me up, not him. So I get up and check it and act accordingly. Yeah. Yvonne says, I hate being a diabetic, especially when I bottom out. That really sucks. Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting hearing from everybody who has experience with this. Yeah. Northwest says 911's not going to be mad at you to call for low blood sugar. Yeah. Imagine this. You sit here. So imagine her. You're on the sofa. Dexcom's gone off numerous times. You sit here and you call 911. You're like, look, I had some surgery. I'm loped out on the sofa. My husband's thing's been going off. He's not responding. I can't get up off the sofa. Could you please send somebody? That's all you do, right? But then especially about, yeah, I found him an hour ago. He's covered in barf. And I was in shock. I didn't call. Honey, please. Yeah. Now, where it gets tricky is proving, wait, hold on one second. Please hold. Okay, sorry. So, did she kind of when she's trying? I'd be curious about that, Northwest. See, I'm very curious to now learn about the previous deaths associated with her. Maria says, I usually hear my alarm go off, but if I don't respond, he's woken me up to treat low blood sugar. I always keep, Pop-Tarts in case I need them. Oh, thank you, Kay Bush, for the gift and 10 memberships. That's sweet of you. And I'm sure the people who got them are happy too. Everybody keep in mind, if you go out of the room and come back in, if you get a membership or, new to the memberships, whatever, you will be able to use your emojis and stuff. Yeah, here's the thing. She's acting like this thing. Somebody that you care about, I might even argue somebody you don't care about. You're going to be more attentive. You know what I'm saying? Than, I just couldn't get up off the sofa. I wish I could have done more. And the whole thing of her, so her admitting, and maybe she's going for a negligent homicide, right? Because, again, I'm sitting here thinking this. I'm thinking, at minimum, I don't know how you could get out of that with this one, right? That to me, and again, from sofa speculation, but I'm just like, the evidence is all right there. She's telling you, yeah, I didn't get off the sofa. Yeah, I heard it going. Yeah, I didn't really check it. I thought he was getting the stuff. When I did, he was covered in barf. And so I called 911 an hour later. I was just kind of freaked out. It's like, I don't even know. You see a car wreck, you get out, the person's bleeding out, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm kind of in shock. Hour later, you call 911. Oh, here we go. Hold on. Here we go.
Sarah Hartsfield's insulin murder trial here at the Chambers County Courthouse. A really packed day full of testimony. We saw doctors, we saw law enforcement on the stand, and really got a lot of additional details of things that we've wondered about as this case has gone on. Of course, if you're new to the case, Sarah Hartsfield has been indicted for the murder of her fifth husband since February of 2023. And she's been in jail ever since. Her bond has been set at $2 million. So she's been showing up here to the courthouse every day in her regular street clothes, really focused and intently engaging with the testimony and paying attention to what is being said in court. So there were three big highlights that I wanted to touch on for everyone on YouTube today if you weren't in the courtroom, because these three things really stood out. First, we saw the body camera video of her interview that she first gave to the Chambers County Sheriff's Office at the hospital hospital. We are actually showing that to you right now. This is inside a room at the hospital in Baytown where Joseph Hartsfield got rushed with a dangerously low blood sugar level. That is the deputy on the stand there that actually did the interview. Sarah sitting in court, very intently listening to his testimony. Again, back at that video, you can see that she's appearing to be really emotional, covering her face there and crying. She told the deputy that she gave Joseph Hartsfield 2 insulin pens at his request the night before he ended up in the hospital. She also claimed that she didn't know if it was short or long-acting insulin. She also said that she'd been in and out of sleep because she'd been recovering from her own surgery and possibly was on some various narcotic medication. But she said that she heard Joe getting up to use the bathroom, and she also said she heard alerts from his glucose monitor about his sugar level being low during that time. We should note that the deputy that got up on the stand and testified, sometimes he does DUI investigations. He said that during that interview with Sarah that you saw, that he really didn't get the impression of impairment from her. So the doctor that testified today said that if his blood sugar was as low as that glucose monitor indicated it was, then that level of activity that Sarah said that she heard about him getting up, walking around, that level of activity probably would not have been likely. So that was one of the big things that we saw in court today, again, that had never been seen before, was that video. She also, in that video, when she was looking really emotional and wiping her face, she said that she told the deputy, is who she told, that she just felt guilty that she didn't do more to help him. We don't know what other video we'll see. Of course, we have heard her 911 call so far in court. That was some interesting element that we saw as well, and you can see that in the YouTube live from yesterday, the discussion about that. But the number 2 big thing that came out of court today was the last witness who took the stand, and that actually was the detective from Minnesota who investigated Sarah Hartsfield back in 2018 when she fatally shot her fiance, an ex. They had been separated and still living together. His name is David Bragg. We actually have a photo of him and some of the background here on his case. They had been dating, and they apparently had shared that house together in Garfield, Minnesota. And according to that detective who testified today, Sarah went to the house and she was picking up some clothes for her children, but she went into that house with 2 guns. And apparently it turned into some sort of argument with David Bragg. And that's when she said that she had to shoot him in self-defense. Now, his family, who I have interviewed, has really disputed the fact about this being a self-defense shooting. And they seem to think that, the story that they were told didn't necessarily add up with what they knew about David Bragg. And so we learned from that detective on the stand today that the 3 shots that went into his lower stomach area were actually in a pretty tight grouping. That was something new that we learned. And the detective said that it's a, quote, wait and see right now, because since her indictment here in Texas, the prosecutors there in Minnesota have reopened that investigation. The the detective that testified said that, again, it's a wait and see, and that the charge in Minnesota has not been filed. She's not been arrested in Minnesota, but the murder case here in Texas has really kind of impacted some of the decision making in that case in terms of moving it forward. We also spoke with Sarah's son in 2023. He was there in Minnesota when that shooting happened. He wasn't at the house. In fact, he was actually at school at the time. But he obviously knew about what happened. He even told us that he helped clean up some of the mess after that happened. This was for our documentary, The Two Sides of Sarah, which you can watch on YouTube. But I just wanted to play some of that old sound from our interview with him about his thoughts on the day of that shooting.
I woke up that morning and it was weird. Like there was just something in the air. She said she dropped and had her hand over the railing. You can't get a shot grouping that tight. Even if, I don't know anyone that can do it. Like, and I know there's not a lot of recoil on the gun she used, but still, like, the grouping does not match how she was standing.
So that's, again, Sarah Hartsfield's son, Ryan Donahue, talking with us back in 2023 after her indictment here in Texas. He is on the witness list. We've seen him at the courthouse here. He is possibly going to take the stand at some point during this trial and testify about an array of things that he has past knowledge of. So that's a case, again, that the detective said is wait and see right now. And at this point, she has not been charged in Minnesota. But one of the big fights here in this trial is whether or not the judge was going to let the jury hear about any of the past alleged bad acts or alleged crimes that prosecutors wanted to bring up. And today we did see that detective get on the stand, and he certainly was able to talk a lot about what they knew about that investigation and the fact that it has now been reopened. All right. And the third big piece that came out in court today, which we've all kind of been waiting for, because when Joseph Hartsfield died, the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office ended up doing the autopsy. And the autopsy had to be peer reviewed. So his death was in January. It wasn't until the end of March that we actually learned his cause of death. And at that point, according to the medical examiner's office, his cause of death was ruled complications of toxic effects of insulin. So the medical examiner, the doctor who actually did the autopsy and went through all of the records and said she literally observed and inspected his brain, she was on the stand inside the courthouse today as well. And she said without a doubt that there was too much insulin in his body that led to a cascade of events that ultimately resulted in Joseph Hartsfield's death. The defense was trying to say, well, maybe he had a stroke. Possibly he had a stroke based on medical professionals not being able to completely rule that option out. But again, according to the doctor who did the autopsy, it was because there was too much insulin in his body. Now, the manner of death has been a really big question here in this case because the manner was left undetermined. Of course, there are a few options that the medical examiner's office can put on those reports. It could be a homicide, a suicide, accidental, natural. You know, there are those types of rulings. But in this case, it was left undetermined. And the testimony from the doctor on that was that she couldn't make that determination without something like a piece of video or something that she saw with her own eyes to see exactly who injected Joseph Hartsfield with too much insulin. You know, we've been talking with our legal expert, Rick DeToto, throughout the week, and he said that that's possibly going to be a really big hole in the state's case. We will have to wait and see what the jury thinks about that. But since we're talking about insulin, we wanted to bring in a diabetes expert tonight. So I believe that we can bring her in now, Dr. Arthi Thangadu. She is in the studio back in Houston. Thank you so much for joining us, doctor. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. I know we've gone back and forth on this because I'm certainly not the medical expert and I did not want to mess anything up with some of the testimony that we have heard in court. But I've shared with you a lot of the notes from what we've heard from the doctors. And I just want to start with this because, again, according to that medical examiner, it was too much insulin in Joseph Hartsfield's body. What does that mean? What happened if there was too much insulin in his body?
So that means that the insulin level was detected to be too high in his body on the in the toxicology report, which in a person with type 1 diabetes, the body doesn't make any insulin. So that would indicate that the person was injected with too much insulin, whether it was by himself or someone else.
So there's really no question about that. That is basically what that means.
Correct.
So according to prosecutors, they have told us that his glucose level may have been low for about 20 hours, and that was all based on his Dexcom, which is the glucose monitor that he had. If his glucose was really that low for 20 hours, what does that mean?
So when somebody has a low glucose and they're wearing a continuous glucose monitoring system like a Dexcom, it will alert them based on the reference range that they've set for themselves. So he should have been alerted that his blood sugar was low. Sometimes these devices can misread, in which cases patients should do a capillary blood glucose. That's what we think of as a finger stick blood glucose to check. But if his blood sugar was low for that long, we would expect him to be trying to correct it, trying to get help, trying to do whatever he could to bring that blood sugar back to a normal level.
So he would have known that his blood sugar was that low, most likely?
More than likely, yes. Unless, he was...
We heard this...
unless he was so low that he was not cognitively aware, if he was passed out or something like that.
Yeah, we have heard testimony about that. I'm sorry, there's just a little bit of a delay, so I'm not trying to talk over you. But we did hear some testimony that there were other potential drugs in his system, according to the toxicology reports. There were 3 that the prosecutor rattled off in court today. One was Valium, which would be a benzodiazepine. That was the testimony that we heard. We also heard about Benadryl, which, again, I mean, most people know that makes you drowsy, an allergy medication. And then also Ropinirol was the other one, which could, I guess, make people drowsy. Am I right on that?
Yeah, so definitely the Valium and the Benadryl could impair people's cognitive function and make them drowsy.
Okay. We heard this talk yesterday in court about hypoglycemia unawareness or awareness, and I want to get your take on that because is there anything that would cause Joseph Hartsfield to possibly not have a sense of his dropping or low sugar level?
Yes, so many patients with type 1 diabetes or any type of diabetes, really, especially if they're on insulin, if they frequently experience hypoglycemia or low blood sugar, they can lose the sensation of what we call hyperadrenergic symptoms. Those are symptoms where people just feel icky. They feel clammy, shaky, nervous, agitated, hungry, those types of things. And that's usually when the blood sugar is low, like 70 to 55. And then lower than 55, we actually see neuroglycopenic symptoms. That means the brain is not getting enough sugar, in which case people can pass out or even die.
You mentioned the 70 and the 55, and that reminded me of something else that we heard in court, actually. So these Dexcom monitors, how common are they, by the way?
In my practice, they're very common because we deal with so many patients with diabetes. But I think they're fairly common. They're getting more and more common every year.
Yeah, one of the doctors that was here actually testified that Dexcoms save lives. So it seems like they are pretty common. But what we heard in court is that Joseph Hartsfield, he really did not like it when his sugar ran low. He had a fear or anxiety of his sugar level getting too low. And the testimony that we heard was that he had actually adjusted the settings on his glucose monitor. So apparently the factory settings are normally at 55 when you would get the alert for your sugar to be low. But in his case, according to the testimony, he had adjusted it so that he would start getting that alert when his sugar dipped below 70. And actually, we should clarify something because I'm saying these numbers and I want you to make sense of them. Like, what does 70 mean, or what would the average be in someone maybe before a meal? Sorry, there's a lot of bugs out here, but before a meal or after a meal?
Yeah, so a blood sugar of less than 70 is considered low, especially in a patient on insulin. We don't like seeing their blood sugar that low because of the symptoms we discussed that they can experience, or also the life-threatening emergencies that can occur from there. Between 70 and 100 is considered okay. We don't love our people living with type 1 diabetes too much lower than 100 either, because, that's just creeping to a dangerous spot. But most people, after a meal, everybody's different. So blood sugar is very variable, and normals for different people can be variable. So I don't want to give a number that's a blanket statement for everybody, but
right. Yeah.
But we typically accept blood sugars up to 140. Above that, we like to bring them down, and everybody has settings that are calibrated on their continuous glucose monitors and their insulin pumps if they're wearing one, based on their individual needs.
So with that in mind, these kind of average levels, and I totally get what you're saying, every person is different, every patient would be different. But if EMS got to their house and his blood sugar level, they did a finger prick, and his blood sugar was registering on their monitor at 22, what does that mean?
That's very, very low. We would expect him to be very confused, if not passed out already. And that is an extremely low number and very dangerous.
The defense was really trying to make the point throughout a lot of the testimony yesterday and getting these same doctors to testify about the same records that for years, Joseph Hartsfield mismanaged his diabetes and did not follow the doctor's orders. They said that he wouldn't always take the full amount of prescribed insulin, or sometimes he would skip the doses altogether. And oh, by the way, one more thing. He had been diagnosed about 25 years ago with diabetes. So if, thinking about him having it for 25 years, and if he's had it for that long, and, he was consistently hyperglycemic, meaning his sugar level was higher than it should have been, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So if he was continuously hyperglycemic, could this have suddenly led to like a sudden death? Like he had? Like, would the complications have been that bad at that point?
So diabetes is a chronic disease that has microvascular complications that occur over time. So people living with diabetes, especially if their diabetes is not well controlled, they're chronically hyperglycemic, they can have higher risk of things like heart attack and stroke, which, as we know, can lead to sudden cardiac death, a stroke. So having poorly controlled diabetes for a long time could lead to sudden death.
Okay. And you mentioned stroke. And like I said, that was visible on some of the hospital records that were presented in court today. But the doctors that testified said, they just couldn't, based on everything that they knew, they couldn't for sure rule out a stroke. So it was listed. But the primary reason for his hospitalization when he went to the ER, according to the records that we saw, was because of the hypoglycemia. And again, possibly for 20 hours. We also heard that Joseph Hartsfield had been in the hospital a couple of times in the year leading up to his death for DKA. Can you break that down for us? What does that mean? And why would he have had to be hospitalized for that? And could that have been connected to something that happened, his death months later?
Yeah, so DKA is a very severe complication of diabetes. It usually occurs in type 1 diabetes. It sometimes occurs in type 2 diabetes, but it is due to insulin deficiency. So if somebody is consistently not taking their insulin or taking too little insulin, they can wind up in a state that's called diabetic ketoacidosis. And in this state, the body builds ketone bodies that eventually make the blood acidotic, which is very dangerous to the entire system. So, however, this is usually associated with high blood sugar, not usually hypoglycemia. However, there are some cases of what we call euglycemic DKA, which is the blood sugar is normal, but a patient is in DKA. So there are different pathophysiologies of what occurred prior in his previous hospitalizations, which it was actually a deficiency of insulin versus what we're talking about now, which was excess insulin.
We've also heard a lot of testimony about his A1C and how his A1C, I believe it's a percentage, has been higher than what would be considered normal or average. What does that mean? And in this particular case, could that have been something, again, that would have led to this sudden hospitalization and prolonged time being in hypoglycemia?
So an elevated A1C means that on average for the last 3 months approximately, the patient had an elevated blood sugar. Now, it is an average, right? So that could mean that the patient is persistently elevated, like they're constantly living at 400, or their average is an average of lows and highs. So it doesn't give us minute by minute information, but it gives us an estimate of the average and risk of complications. So based on an A1C, we don't really know if he was just always high or if he was having a lot of glycemic variability with lows and highs together, even if his average was high.
That makes sense. I appreciate you making sense of all of this because, yeah, I'm hearing this testimony in court, and of course, I'm no medical expert, and the doctors are breaking it down really well for the jury, but then to come out here and explain it on the camera, I'm so glad you're here to help us understand this a little bit better. I want to ask you also about these insulin pens, because this has been a really key point, I would say, of this case. At the beginning, there was a search warrant that we obtained. And in that search warrant, it said that the investigators who went to the Hartsfield couple's home, they found up to 10 insulin pens on his side of the bed. There's been a lot of question. Were they short acting? Were they long acting? Were the caps on? Were they empty? There are still a lot of questions, and I don't know that we have all of those answers yet. But according to what the deputy said who testified today, and that body camera video that we showed when he was interviewing her there in the hospital, she told the first officer that she gave an interview to that she gave him 2 insulin pens at his request. And then she doesn't know if they were long acting or fast acting. What difference would that make?
So most people with type 1 diabetes use 2 types of insulin, as you mentioned, long acting and short acting. So long acting insulin is also called basal insulin, and short acting is what people might give at meal times or if they're high. But they are very dangerous if they are confused. And I have seen this happen with patients, because oftentimes the long-acting dose is much higher than what a person would take with a meal. Like, let's say a person takes 40 units of basal long-acting insulin once a day, and then 12 units with each meal. You know, that's a big difference, 12 units versus 40 units. So if a patient accidentally was to take their basal dose and was to give themselves the basal dose in a short-acting pen, that would be a very, very high dose of insulin that would act very rapidly and could cause profound hypoglycemia.
And if someone were to have those 3 drugs that I mentioned in their system, the Valium, Benadryl, and Ropinirole, could that have led to any, I guess, drowsiness or confusion in figuring out what kind of insulin they should have been using at that point, or what was on the box or the pen?
Yeah, absolutely. So how these pens work is they have a little dial on them. And so a patient has to be, they have to be able to see well, and they need to have good manual dexterity to work them well. And they need to be cognitively alert. They need to know what they're doing, because you know, it's an easy click to get to the wrong dose. And so if somebody their vision is impaired, their cognition is impaired, and their manual dexterity is impaired, which all could happen with some of those medications, they could certainly give themselves an inaccurate dose, or perhaps give themselves the wrong type of insulin.
So it could be kind of easy to inject too much if you're not paying the closest attention. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, it could be. And we do see it clinically where patients accidentally incorrectly dose themselves with insulin.
We are getting some questions, I think, in the YouTube live chat. One that I just saw that popped in. I keep looking down here at the computer. Do insulin pens have to be refrigerated? If so, why would 10 be put out and next to the bed? How is insulin stored?
Yes, so they do have to be refrigerated, but not immediately. They can stay out of the fridge for several hours and sometimes even days, depending on if they've been opened, if they've been used yet or not. You know, for safety purposes, I wouldn't recommend keeping multiple pens in the same place, because you could get confused easily. But realistically, it is possible that someone could have multiple pens out at the same time.
Okay. When you are dealing with your patients normally, I mean, are they sleeping with 10 pens next to them on the insulin, or next to them on the bedside table, or how does that usually? How do you recommend they store it, I guess?
I sure hope they aren't, because that's very confusing. And I would recommend that they put their insulin back in a safe place, because not only could they get confused, you know, pets, children, all kinds of people could get into it who couldn't. So I think most people are storing their insulin safely in the refrigerator and carefully, because we try to counsel patients as best as we can at how high risk these medications are.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to go back to one thing, and I think you've already kind of answered it briefly, but I think it's an interesting point here, and we still have a lot of testimony to hear, is that according to what Sarah herself told investigators was that, she was asleep, in and out of sleep, recovering from surgery on those narcotic medications, and that she heard Joe getting up, walking around, using the bathroom, and then she also thought that he was taking care of those Dexcom alerts, the glucose monitor alerts, because apparently there was a glass of orange juice that had been set out on their counter, and she said that she thought he was drinking it to boost his sugar level, and then she would refill it, and she assumed that he was drinking it. If the data from that Dexcom monitor is showing, again, that the level, his glucose level was so low for so long, would that to you be a realistic level of activity?
So if a person's blood sugar is really 20, no, it wouldn't. It would be very unlikely that they would be cognitively and physically able to drink a glass of water and manage the alerts. One caveat to that, though, is sometimes the Dexcom readings are off, right? It's reading a lower number than what a capillary finger stick is. So what we always recommend, if a patient is alert and oriented and their blood sugar reading is 20, well, that doesn't make much sense. So they should be doing a finger stick. So we can't rely 100% on the Dexcom readings. However, patterns are very telling when we have a continuous glucose monitor. And so if he had been high and the sensor seemed to be working well and then was low, that would indicate that it was more accurate compared to other data that might tell us that it wasn't accurate.
Obviously, so much of this is based on the data and based on the records. And I want to get your perspective on this because it seems like some of these doctors that have got up to testify, they have not, they don't want to say exactly one thing or exactly another thing. It's like they are maybe trying to rule certain things out, and, every patient may be different. And just talk to me kind of from the doctor's perspective. Why is it maybe troublesome or bad to just have such like hard lines about exactly what something is or isn't, if that makes sense, my question?
Well, the thing with insulin levels is we don't have a test that can tell us, okay, if I check your blood now, I know that you injected 20 units. We don't have that type of test available commercially. So it's very difficult for us to say, did he become hypoglycemic because he injected way too much insulin for himself from our standard tests? Now, I understand that toxicology probably does have other tests that might give them that information that aren't commercially available. But I think that does make it very difficult for us to say, did he take his regular dose? Did he not take his regular dose? Was something else going on? Sometimes illness can make people have a higher propensity for hypoglycemia. Things like adrenal insufficiency that may not have been diagnosed could cause hypoglycemia. So, there are other reasons that a patient may have hypoglycemia in addition to taking too much insulin.
And one more thing here that's come to mind, because Joseph Hartsfield, he was 46 when he died. Again, the testimony from these doctors has been that he didn't really manage his diabetes very well, even before he met Sarah, and he loved to eat, and he didn't really have his diet fully in check. There's some testimony that also came in from a doctor that one time Joe had a virtual visit with a doctor and Sarah was there for the virtual visit as well. I guess she was involved in it in some way. And then afterwards, apparently that doctor said that Sarah individually called the doctor's office and told the doctor, he didn't tell you exactly the right thing about how much insulin he's taking, and he's not taking the dose that he says he's taking. From your experience, are spouses usually that involved in someone's like diabetes care, or is that usually something that maybe just like the person deals with on their own? Do you kind of have a sense for that?
Yes. So one thing I want to say before I answer that question is that type 1 diabetes, while diet does matter, it does affect blood sugar, of course, people still need insulin. And sometimes there's a misconception that, a person did this to themselves, or their diet was poor and that's why they are dealing with these blood sugar issues. Whereas in type 1 diabetes, it is true insulin deficiency due to an autoimmune disease where the body has attacked its own pancreas and made it not able to produce insulin. So I just want to make that point clear. As far as spouses and family members being engaged in diabetes management, we actually do see that very often. Some people do go about their own diabetes management on their own, but many times the family is involved because, diet, nutrition, lifestyle is often revolves around the whole family. So we do see spouses involved, often parents, of course, because many type 1 people living with type 1 diabetes, or many of them are children. We have, many daughters often are involved in type 1 diabetes management and their parents. So I don't think it's unusual to have a spouse involved. If that was my patient, I would encourage maybe communication with the patient present, but given the dynamic of the circumstance, maybe that wasn't what was appropriate in that case.
Do you also see spouses who are maybe like in charge of administering their diabetic partner's insulin, or is that more so the individual person who takes care of their insulin?
I see that all the time. Yeah, a lot of patients, especially, some people are older and may not have that manual dexterity or may not feel comfortable injecting themselves. Some people have needle phobia. Lots of reasons that other people are helping them with their injections.
One question, sorry to keep you, but we got another question on the YouTube live chat. And so I just want to check with you about this because of the Dexcom. There's been kind of some back and forth about the alarms that come from the Dexcom when you get to that low level of glucose. In this case, Joe did have those alerts turned on. Like I said, the testimony was that he had it set at 70 for the low alert. And apparently those alerts were also shared with his wife, with Sarah. I believe I read in some records that it was listed as bestest wife was how his Dexcom app was showing the person that it was shared with. Can you silence those alarms? This came up in court and it seemed a little confusing because the doctor, let's wait for that graphic. I want to talk about that in just a minute. But actually, wait a second. We could pull that back up because she's talking about these Dexcom alerts. That's a good one for this. Sorry, I thought that was the next one. One message that she sent me from jail, by the way, was that she did not ignore his Dexcom alerts. She was on her own pain regimen in another room after having another surgery. Joe knew I couldn't do anything for him. I was sleeping most of the day and night. Yeah, so she did send me that message from her jail cell back in 2023. After she got arrested and indicted, of course. So can you turn those alerts off? I mean, I don't know if that's fully a question because, again, in the testimony we heard from that deputy who interviewed her today, she said that she was hearing or paying attention to his alerts. But if you can turn those alerts off, just kind of tell us how those work.
Yeah, I mean, you could turn them off, or if you put your phone in another room, or if you're keeping your phone on silent, or there's plenty of ways to miss alerts on your phone, and so it is possible that if she didn't have her phone or wasn't able to hear her phone, she could have, or had her phone on silent, she may not have been hearing those, even though that's not exactly what she said.
Okay, yeah, there are a lot of questions, and of course everyone is fighting to make their points heard in court every day so that the jury can ultimately decide whether or not to convict her for allegedly killing her fifth husband in January of 2023. Doctor, before we let you go, any additional thoughts? I'm sure there's more that's going to be coming up in the trial. We might want to check in again, but anything before we let you go?
Yeah, I think this is so tragic, and it just gives us the a look into how important it is for patients to have great diabetes education and support in their care, because insulin, even though it's a common medication, probably everybody knows somebody who has used insulin at some point. Everybody knows somebody with diabetes, whether it be type 1 or type 2 or another type of diabetes. The medications are very potent and can be potentially life-threatening, so it drives home the importance of making sure that we educate our patients living with diabetes well and their families.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much to know. I feel like I'm like in a class learning about it, just sitting and listening to some of this testimony that we've heard, and doctors really trying to make it make sense for us. So thank you for helping it make sense to everyone who hasn't been able to sit in the courtroom and kind of hear how this has all unfolded. And of course, if more comes up from the doctors, I'm going to be calling you, and we might need to check in again. So thanks again, doctor.
Absolutely, anytime.
All right, we'll talk again soon. I know a lot of people have been asking about Sarah Hartsfield's demeanor in court, and I think there were a couple other questions that we got in the YouTube live chat. Is she making attempts to contact her family who is at the trial, is one that I see here. I don't know. I don't know if she's reached out to them since the trial has started. I do know from looking at the list of alleged bad acts that prosecutors are hoping to bring up that in May of this year, she may have tried to tamper with her son, Ryan, who's listed as a witness in this case. We don't know. We haven't heard any testimony on that. But since the trial has started, I really don't have a good sense of who she has or has not been in touch with. I certainly have not gotten any messages like I did back in 2023 when she had seen some of our stories on TV. And someone else asked if she's seen her kids or her family during the trial. I don't know. And I know you can't see the easiest behind me, but if you look behind me, there are a lot of windows here in this courthouse, and it's really small. I mean, the courtroom is on the 3rd floor. The bathroom is on the 2nd floor during the breaks. You know, you're walking out the same entrance with the defense attorneys, or you're walking out next to one of the jurors. Of course, we can't interact with them, or you're even sometimes using the bathroom right next to those people. So I don't know what she can see or what she can't see from where they are keeping her when she's not in the courtroom. But none of the witnesses who are expected to testify, none of them have been into the courtroom because they haven't been called yet, and they're being asked to, you know, hang out and wait until it's time for them to be called to the stand. So yeah, her demeanor today, we did not see the Bible that we have seen, and she really did appear to continue to be pretty intent on listening to the testimony and paying attention to what these doctors had to say, and sometimes maybe like scowling at what one of the records shows that they're presenting to the jury. So she does still seem to be very engaged with what's going on here. And I do want to show you one other message that she had sent, again, back in 2023. She said in that message that, quote, all the lies, accusations that were no more than supposed hearsay and sheer hatred still couldn't keep the truth from rising to the top, even if I couldn't speak for myself. That's one of the messages that she sent. And of course, we have heard her attorney make several objections in court about what he perceives as hearsay. Some the judge has agreed with him on, others he has been overruled. So that was Sarah's message. And again, there's a lot that we've got to wait and see what will happen here. The jury has heard a lot in this case already. It's been a really packed week of testimony. But based on the witness list and based on who we've seen, there are still a lot more people to hear from. We, of course, will continue to be here in Chambers County every day of this trial. And we'll see you again tomorrow morning on KPRC2 News. Have a good rest of the night.
Well, well, well. If we didn't just get a bunch of questions answered. So, there's a lot there. I'm going to have to even see what I can remember to bring up. Okay, so huge thing. And again, this is just how I feel. So, do I feel like she did it intentionally and killed him? Yes. Do I think they might have a hard time proving it? Yes. However, them bringing up being up, so we already know they brought up one thing, right? Just the other self-defense murder. Because I'm going to almost put money on it right now. Minnesota's going to hit her with charges. Okay, period. Oh, yeah, let's do a poll, Ginger. Good idea. Hold on. So that looks bad. Then, like, when the son gets up there and testifies, and it's not going to be in her favor. Hold on. That's going to be even worse. Oh, wait, here's the thing. I'm going to do a poll real quick, y'all. Hold on. Start poll. Do they have enough evidence for murder conviction? Bam. Okay. Now, also listening to, and I hope that they're going to have this testimony, because especially for those of us who aren't like that versed in how this works and whatnot, them saying, yeah, if that was really his reading, which, hey, it could be wrong on the Dexcom, there is room for that, but you're not getting up, going and getting some orange juice at this point, right? So I think one thing that's going to work to the benefit of a possible murder conviction is that they are being able to say she's lying about the behaviors that were going on in the household. Again, the same way that, so the Donna Adelson, now this is a little bit different, but I'm going to continually keep going back to the Donna Adelson thing because it's the last thing we did. The bump was the big thing for me in Donna Adelson's case. So far, like, of evidence I'm hearing is, and again, she's telling two different stories, because if she's telling the cop in the body cam interview, oh, I heard the Dexcom going off, but I was out of it, this and the other. Then when I finally got up, he was covered in barf, and I called an hour later. That's incredibly damning evidence. Like, and again, for me at least, if they give me the charges, I'd be like, at minimum, you can't get past negligent homicide with me on this one, period. Right? Now, let's talk about the murder charges. Okay, he's talking about who everyone's saying, again, this is, he said, she said. But if the evidence showing, oh, he was super paranoid about his numbers, this, that, and the other, do you think he's going to have 10 pens next to his bed, unrefrigerated? You know what I'm saying? No. Now, also the doctor saying, yeah, at a certain point, you're going to be kind of out of it. You might not know what you're doing. So that's where that gets very gray zone-y. But you put all the context of everything else in there, and I want to hear the prosecution say, we want you to charge her with blank because of this action. Can we 100% prove that she did it? No. But look at all the behaviors surrounding it. You know what I'm saying? The doctors are saying that, yeah, you know what? He had basically an overdose of that. Well, how did he get it? Okay, do we think that this man did it himself? It's a possibility, but what's also a possibility? And that's just going to come down to law and evidence, and can they prove it, and who's won the jury over. When the son gets up there talking about, yeah, mom brought in 2 guns to the house. This is the other murder. It was too perfect. It was this and that. It didn't make sense. They've reopened the case. No. Same thing as Michael Peterson when they said, oh, yeah, by the way, another female in his life was dead at the foot of at some stairs. Hello? Oh, what? Staircases is a murder weapon twice? No. Doesn't look good. Hold on. And if they bring evidence up, which I don't know what the evidence of her trying to tamper with him, no. They're going to look at all that context and be like, Giggles brings up a good question. Do we know if the 10 pens next to him were empty or not? I do not know. Drop it if y'all know. Now, also note that she admits he asked me to give him 2 EpiPens. So she touched 2 of them, she admits to, which is why the cops didn't fingerprint all the other things. So she admitted to doing 2. Now, again, what I would want to know is, could you just hit him with 2 of those? And that was enough to do it, because imagine this. Imagine he's in there sleeping. She gets 2 pens and she goes in there and bam at the same time. And that's enough to make him, I would assume, I don't know. I want to hear them walk through that. And then the rest of it is she's just sitting there pretending to whatever on the sofa. Now, just like the doctor said, well, if her phone was off, she might not have heard it. Because now she's telling the reporter, oh, no, I was out of it. I was in the other room. I was this, I was that. And maybe her phone personally wasn't, but she's already admitted that she kept hearing it go off. And then if they can say, no, there's no way this dude was getting up. Oh, well, sorry, not EpiPen, insulin pens. No, this dude was getting. There's no way this dude was getting up and getting orange juice. So why did she say that? You see what I'm saying? There's too much of the story that, again, I would trust, if we can, say that the evidence is going to paint the picture more clear as we keep going, right? Because too much of it doesn't add up. And again, right now, the fact that she admits, I found him at 1 o'clock covered in throw up in a medical emergency. At 2 o'clock, I called 911. I mean, why? That doesn't even make sense. No, so I think the motive, and I think that's a good question, Kat, because yeah, do we have, I mean, other than just, this is just her MO, she seems to just have a pattern of killing people. I don't know if it's financial. I can't remember if they said that there was insurance or anything like that. My question at this point is, and again, we'll never know. Only she and him know. And obviously he's not here. My question would be what initially went down. And like I said, did she come in there with the insulin pens and be, just immediately do an overdose? And if so, what, was it because they were going to be, because remember, leading up to this, he was scared for his life of her. He was wanting to leave her. He was wanting to do this. He was wanting to do that. Okay, I'm going to go back, y'all, and finish reading the updates. I know he just did them, but I want to see if there's other information that was left out. So we're going to pick back up here at 10. We were at 10:48 a.m. Deputy Yeatman was dismissed from the stand. The ninth witness, Dr. Aghogo. Okay, I'm gonna say Dr. O so they don't continually butcher their name. And just so I can read through it here quickly, because I'm going to do their name no justice. So Dr. O, an emergency room physician at Houston Methodist Baytown, testified that she treated Joseph when he arrived at the hospital January 7th, 2023. She's been a doctor for more than 10 years and is licensed in multiple states. Dr. O said the EMS told her Joseph's glucose level was in the 20s. Okay, so remember what they just talked about with that. She testified that she put Joseph on life support, stabilized him, and ordered a CT scan, blood work, urine screen, and other studies. She observed that Joseph had bruising to both arms, lower extremities, not breathing fully, grunting, vomit on the corner of his mouth, and was not responsive. God bless him. This man died a horrible death. She told jurors she treated hypoglycemia and gave Joseph 2 amps of dextrose, which patients typically respond to by waking up within minutes. But Joseph didn't respond and his level would go back down. She added, should have remained higher than what it kept dropping to. A CT scan showed brain injury, cells had died. Dr. O testified that this indicated low sugar level could mean injury to the brain. According to hospital records, Joseph arrived at 3:12 p.m. with glucose level of 42. Dextrose was given first as an IV dose, then through a drip. Dr. O said she initially ordered a benzodiazepine, but discontinued the order, noting she didn't administer benzo even though a urine screen came back positive for it. Once Joseph began seizing later, records showed he likely received lorazepam benzo. She clarified a doctor wouldn't use benzos to treat low blood sugar, only related to seizure activity. Dr. O testified that she had concerns about the timeline, noting the time in which Joseph was unresponsive and the time he arrived at the ER, how low his sugars were going, and him not responding to dextrose. She described the facts of the case as unique in her experience. Yeah, I mean, this is Yeah. Okay. So Dr. Earl told the jurors that Sarah instructed her not to communicate with her husband's family, which stood out to her. Given Joseph's severe state, assumed loved ones would want to know info about him, she said, adding that trying to withhold information was uncomfortable. She testified that she was suspicious of Sarah. I mean, this is bad for her, okay, y'all. On cross-exam, defense attorney Darwin asked about sepsis. Dr. O explained that sepsis is basically a condition in which there's an infection. Once the infection overruns the system, signs of organ damage are present. Joseph's sepsis score was 7, which she called a high number. She added Joseph needed antibiotic treatment and that sepsis could contribute to a hypoglycemic state. Okay, let's just get to where we're going to go next. I have something to say. They go to lunch. 1:30, they come back. Again, I'll hold on. For the doctor to be on the stand and say, she's concerned talking about don't talk to my husband's family. Y'all. And that was weird and odd, and that all of this was very abnormal. Yeah, this is not. This is where you get into, even if they can't say, we have Mr. or whatever it was, Miss Peacock in the kitchen with a knife in her hand and killed the butler. This is the kind of stuff right here that's all adding up to be like, this is who is concerned about saying don't talk to the family in this moment. Hold on 1 second. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, 1:30, court comes back after lunch. When Dr. O returned to the stand, the jury heard more details about Joseph's condition and what Sarah told the hospital staff. Records show that Sarah claimed Joseph suffered chemical burns at work to explain rashes on his body and told staff that they were working on their diet together at home. Joseph's A1C was measured at 8.8%. And while Sarah said that Joseph always managed himself, she also asked that he be listed as do not resuscitate, something the doctor testified is not unusual. Medical records also noted that Joseph's heart wasn't squeezing and functioning the way it should, with enzyme levels indicating damage, and plaque buildup was seen in an intracranial artery. Okay, hold on. At 2:02, Dr. O dismissed. The 10th witness, Dr. K, a neurologist, takes the stand. Dr. K is a neurologist at the Houston Methodist who was practicing since '89. He explained that when Joseph arrived at the ER on January 7, 2023, he was comatose, unresponsive with pneumonia and breathing issues. He said an MRI revealed ischemic evidence and lack of oxygen to the brain. The doctor testified that Joseph suffered neurological damage from a prolonged period of hypoglycemia, which put him in a coma. He said that hypoglycemia lasting 4 to 5 hours can irreversibly damage the brain, adding that 20 hours is too long. His diagnosis was hypoxic ischemic, irreversible brain damage. Bless his heart. My God. The neurologist told jurors it was very difficult to get low blood sugar, and the most likely cause would be too much medication orally or insulin. Okay, again, this is where we're starting to get into. You're getting doctors up here saying, yeah, this is very, we've heard from numerous doctors saying this. This is abnormal. On the stand, the jury's hearing it. He testified that medications like Valium, Roperidol, and Benadryl could make a patient extremely drowsy, combined with prolonged hypoglycemia, would likely not be able to get up, walk around, or act normally. Okay, again, this is, yeah. He ruled out stroke, saying that Joseph's case was an acute event based on lack of blood sugar, and testified Joseph was more at risk of severe brain damage if someone introduced something to his body that made him have severe low blood sugar. Okay, this is the testimony we're looking for right here. I'm checking in with y'all real quick. This is the kind of stuff that I'm needing to hear. You know what I'm saying? Not needing, but just to be like, okay, yep, there we go. We have medical professionals up here. Connecting the dots is what I'm trying to say. Okay, let's keep going. There's not much more. 2 o'clock, Dr. Oh, wait, I already read that. Sorry. 2:47. Wait, well, hold on. Why do they keep saying the same thing? So Dr. O was dismissed, but I think they meant somebody else. And the 11th witness, Dr. B, an assistant medical examiner, took the stand. Dr. B is an assistant medical examiner with the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences who has performed more than 2,000 autopsies. She said that undetermined is one of the 5 possible manners of death when used when she cannot definitively categorize a case as natural, accident, homicide, or unaliving. That determination, she said, can ultimately become the jury's decision in criminal cases. Let's scroll down. She performed Joseph's autopsy, reviewed his medical records, and examined toxicology results. The cause of death, she testified, was complications of toxic effects of insulin, essentially an insulin overdose. She told jurors Joseph's brain showed global hypoxic ischemic injury, meaning it had been without oxygen for days. She saw no evidence of a stroke. Despite Sarah contacting her office and sending a surveillance video she believed showed signs of one. The fact, pause right there. You got the medical examiner talking about Sarah called my office and sent a video talking about, oh, look, this is signs of a stroke. Why would you want to prove that? Here's normal thing. Normal thing with a medical examiner, you're saying, what happened? I want to know what took place here. You're not trying to prove your case to him. Oh, no, look, I got some evidence that shows that. See right here when he did that weird thing in the video? Okay, let's keep going. The examiner said that this was an acute event and that Joseph would not have gone unresponsive and died if it weren't for the large amount of insulin in his system. On cross-exam, she acknowledged that Joseph had chronic coronary artery disease and was sometimes non-compliant with his diabetes medications, but said those conditions were unrelated to his acute hypoglycemia. She admitted she did not know how or when the insulin was administered and ultimately ruled the manner of death undetermined. She told jurors that peers reviewed her findings and agreed, adding that she has only ever handled one insulin overdose case, this one. Even more so. Dr. B dismissed. Judge orders 15-minute break. 3:30, the court resumes. Brandon Cruz, a detective in Minnesota, was the 12th witness to take the stand. Cruz, a detective with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office in Minnesota. Oh, here we go, y'all. Here we go. So this is the self-defense. Said he first investigated Sarah Hartsfield in 2018 after the shooting of her then-boyfriend, David Bragg. He told the court the two, quote, had been broken up for a short period, end quote, but were still living together with Sarah's 3 children. It was May 9th, 2018, and Cruz said that Sarah said it was soon to be Emma's birthday and that her ex-husband, Chris, had come home from Korea to surprise the girls. She said David became jealous after learning Chris was in town and the domestic violence started. And the investigator testified that Sarah told officers that when she went to pick up her daughters from the school bus near her home and needed to go back inside to get clothes, she said she took a handgun in her back pocket, entered the house, and after an argument with David, quote, tried shooting him and the trigger wouldn't go off, end quote. She said she told him she would leave, but then David wrestled the gun from her and fired toward her, leaving a bullet hole in the ceiling. She testified she stood up, pulled her weapon, and fired. David fell to the ground. Hannah came into the residence while on the phone with 911. The investigator said it seemed odd that Sarah would arm herself and enter her home instead of just leaving, saying that it was unusual to see someone take 2 firearms into a residence. He also noted that David had bullet holes in his back and lower left abdomen and a tight grouping. A missing clip from David's gun, he said, was abnormal. He told jurors there were inconsistencies in Sarah's story, and that while the case had initially been declined, it was later reopened. Case is still currently open, he said. On cross-exam, the defense attorney Darwin questioned the detective about whether Sarah had been arrested in connection with the shooting or had any pending charges, to which the detective answered no. And then the court ended for the day. So y'all, so that right there, the jury heard. They're totally going to charge her in that. I mean, please, just a little bit we've learned about it. He had 2 bullet holes in his back. Did that mean like entered from the back? Because if that's the case, please. She gets very slippery. Sarah creates gray zones, which most people like her do, but she seems to be good at it because she's gotten away with it for so long, right? She creates these gray zones. That's why you keep hearing, because isn't it interesting to hear these people getting on the stand and they're like, yeah, it's odd. This is odd, and that's odd, and this is odd, but it says, thank you, Tracy. But it's this like, can't quite say this or that. You know, she seems to be good at this. Yeah, hold on. Kristen says, so she fired at him and it didn't fire. Then he fired at her after getting the weapon. How is that self-defense? I mean, the whole thing is just, she went in there and killed him. You know what it's given? It's given, let me check my pictures. That's what she's given. You know, if you know what I'm talking about. It's given, let me check my pictures. Okay. Period, end of story. Because again, I can't remember who asked the motivation question. I don't think she needs motivation. I think like, he broke up with me. I want to get with this dude. This person upset me. I think she's gotten away with it. She started getting away with it when she was a kid. I think she totally killed her brother when they were kids. She tried to have the girlfriend of an ex or wife of an ex killed, sent somebody to the house. I mean, she's unhinged. She is unhinged. I don't remember this case, y'all. It's completely, and if you know it, drop it in the comment. It was a cop, this lady cop, who's basically a serial killer. Not let me check my pictures. Totally different one. But it was like all that power went to her head, and she was sitting out here just wilding out, and so she finally got caught, and like they got enough evidence. But Sarah seems like that, like she's gotten away with it. And been able to gain a confidence with that. For whatever reason now, because Sherry Papini's name is stuck in my head, it is not Sherry Papini. Let me check my pictures, but it's Sherry. What is her name, y'all? What it's Sherry. Isn't it Sherry? I can't believe I can't think of it right now. Jeez, I don't know. I gotta check my pictures. Jeez, I don't know. That one. Come on, guys. Stephanie Lazarus, thank you. Where am I getting Sherry from? Is Sherry the victim? I think Sherry's the victim. Why am I saying Sherry? Why does that come to my mind? Stephanie, jeez, guys. I don't know. Rasmussen. Is it Sherry Rasmussen was the victim, and that's where I'm mixing them up? Stephanie Lazarus was to check my pictures. I don't know. I'm going to have to check my picture. Okay, so that's where I'm getting Sherry from. So that's where I'm getting Sherry Papini. You just got to work around my little brain here for a minute. We can kind of circle back around to where the left field that I'm going off on there, right? Hey, Nikki, how's it going? Yeah, and the other cop I'm talking about, it was like I saw an episode in the show one time about it. And she was just unhinged, basically. She was like very abusive, this, that, and the other. But, you know, and it's not Stephanie Lazarus. It was another one. Jeez, I don't know. That's like a million years ago. Yeah. And that's the thing with people like this, they get away with it. And she was very shady. They can't prove who or when, where. But I think that just from, okay. Oh, let's go look at the poll. Hold on. I forgot about it. Please hold. Okay, so we're getting a lot of yeses. So 71%. Yeah, Stephanie House is not me, just regular Stephanie House always catching strays in here. First it was Stephanie. Hey, Stephanie Harlow's in the room. And then Stephanie's like, no, it's just me, just regular old Stephanie. Now we got Stephanie Lazarus. Definitely don't want to be confused with her, right? Yeah, Stephanie, check your pictures, Stephanie. Oh my god! If y'all haven't seen True Crime Losers video on, check your picture. Stephanie Lazarus, he did a good one. So, I mean, also not a cop, also not a serial killer. Let's just get a few things straight here. But True Crime Loser did a real good video on Stephanie Lazarus. It was good. Hold on one second. So yeah, I'm feeling more confident about it, but you never know what a jury's going to do. But for me, a huge thing is number one. So top stuff, hearing the medical testimony come out of this was a medical examiner. This was an overdose. Period. This is an overdose. This was can't prove who did it. He could have accidentally done it. And that's where I think the evidence will need to like contextually show this probably isn't somebody that did that. But I mean, this might be a hole in the state's case for that. But at minimum, and again, I don't know if they try. Well, let's look it up right now. Hold on. Let's look it up now that we're not doing something else on them. Please hold. Your call is important to us. Thank you for shopping. Okay. I said, what do you want from me? Okay. What are the charges against? There's so many. Sarah. All right. Hartsfield. I mean, I'm seeing murder, but I don't know. I would want to know if one of the charges is negligent homicide. Because if at minimum, I feel like they've definitely proved that, right? They can't get her on nothing else. But I think so far what we've heard, I think the evidence is going to help get the jury over to a murder conviction. Because I think they're going to prove that this guy wasn't up and doing stuff. And that if he was in his right mind, he was so particular, why would he overdose himself? And if she's sitting here like lying about this, that, and the other, I mean, it is what it is. Oh goodness. So pardon me, the odds are starting. Okay, so that's my signal. It's time for dinner and bedtime. So same time, same place tomorrow, 7:00. We'll see what happened tomorrow, in tomorrow's stuff. Tomorrow's video on the main channel is going to be on Lorenz Krause, the guy who confessed during the news interview to murdering his parents. Y'all, if you haven't watched that, that's your homework for tonight. Okay, if you haven't watched that interview, go watch it. You will fall out of your chair. That one is I was sitting here with my mouth on the floor. Okay, this dude is crazy. So that's the video for tomorrow on the main channel. And then over here, we'll gather around the old campfire again, the old sofa, and we'll see what comes out in court tomorrow. This is fun. I mean, this case is fascinating. Obviously, it's sad. So the guy's name that I mentioned is I think it's Lorenz Krause. But you could also just type into YouTube, man confesses to murdering parents in interview, and it'll come up. And there's multiple ones. You'll also want to see it's by CBS 6 News, I think. The news station dude went back the next day and interviewed him from jail. And it was like, yeah, that didn't really work out how you thought it was going to. He sent like a 2-page, not a manifesto, but manifesto. And then this news station was like, yeah, we'll interview you. And they arrested him right outside the news station. It's crazy. And he's weird as you know what. Of course, right? So anyways, I'm rambling. But that's it. So yeah, well, I'll post the thing tomorrow afternoon for the live chat, and we'll be here at 7. We'll see what happens, and we'll have a week under our belt of testimony. So That's it. I love y'all. Thank you, mods, for keeping the cushion going and all the pillows fluffed for me. I do appreciate it. And thank you, squad, for hanging out and listening to yet another trial with me. Remember, we'll be live streaming Brian Walsh if that does go to trial. So y'all have a wonderful evening. I'll see you in the morning on the main channel, and then I will see you in the evening over here for some more Sarah Hartsfield. We will listen to Slow Morrison's Ode to the Sofa to close out the evening.
The pillows are fluff thanks to Miss Emily. The couch is wide enough, join the family. It's all love while we laugh at Perp's criminalities. Hey, 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 welcome to the Sofa Squad. Sipping from the cup at hey, hey, hey. Come laugh with the Sofa Squad. Can't roll my damn eyes hard enough. Oh, please, the puppies need me. Ooh, oh, please, my body is rejecting none of that fancy credential stuff. I'm just here for the cringe binge. Hey, 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 welcome to the Sofa Squad. Sipping from the cup and hey, hey, hey. Come laugh with the Sofa Squad. Can't roll my damn eyes hard enough. Oh, please, the puppies need me. Oh, please, my body is rejecting none of that fancy credentialed stuff. I'm just here for the cringe binge. Hey, 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 welcome to the Sofa Squad. Sipping from the cup that hey, hey, hey. Come laugh with the Sofa Squad. Can't roll my damn eyes hard enough.